Francisco, it's Rex Broadcasting Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Bryan Alvarez.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Let's get it on. Get it on.
How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. I'm here with Bryan Alvarez. We'll be talking pro wrestling for the next 2 hours here on Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network. Second hour, Bobby the Brain Heenan will be talking about his book, Chair Shots and Other Obstacles, and his life in wrestling, life out of wrestling. Of course, he's going to WrestleMania this coming week and doing some independent shows. He'll be touring with his book, so we'll be talking a lot about him, and he's always been one of our most entertaining guests. First hour in about 15 minutes, we're going to have Tom Cole. We'll be talking about the Rob Feinstein situation. Tom Cole, actually, he was the person who, in a sense, alerted Bill Mushnick at first to things that happened in the World Wrestling Federation back in the early 90s, led to a lot of things. But it was the big scandal of that period, which is very similar on obviously a much larger level than what happened with Ring of Honor. We got two big stories of the week, and the first thing I want to talk about is the death of Ray Hercules Hernandez. Hercules Hernandez was a wrestling name. Ray Hernandez is his real name. Passed away yesterday morning. He was found dead in his sleep. I believe that he was 46 or 47 years old. We actually don't have a lot of details on it right now, but wrestled for, I think starting around 79 or 80, and wrestled all the territories. Of course, he spent about 8 years in the World Wrestling Federation, involved in a lot of big matches, and again, we don't know the cause of the death right now. The preliminary thoughts were it was a heart attack of a young guy. It should be unusual. It's not unusual. We all know why. It's kind of like beating a dead horse. Wednesday, wow, what a day that was. Rob Feinstein, the owner of Ring of Honor and of RF Video, was, I guess, there was a sting operation going on with PervertedJustice.com and WCAU Television in Philadelphia, and they rented a house and they got on some online chat lines and that were, I guess, I don't know where guys went to pick up on young guys, and all of a sudden with an RF Video screen name, believe it or not, somebody was talking, and pages and pages and pages and pages of notes that many people have read. It's actually on their website. And then that night on the local NBC affiliate, they had Rob Feinstein come to the door, I guess thinking of what it was, and he, on camera, ran away, sped away, and Ring of Honor is in quite an interesting situation right now, especially with the biggest card in their history coming up this coming Saturday. So, anyway, we can talk about that or anything else. We got one line available at 1-800-878-PLAY. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez, Big Four Weekly. Bryan will only be here for the first hour because Bryan is wrestling in, you're in Milwaukee, Oregon tonight?
That's right, Milwaukee.
The home of Matt Bourne.
That's right.
Yeah, I thought that was so funny on
tonight.
What?
He's wrestling tonight.
Matt Bourne's wrestling tonight?
Yes.
Sure it's not Dinsmore?
Huh?
Sure it's not Nick Dinsmore?
I'm pretty sure.
They look like so much alike.
Nick Dinsmore last night is the exact thing he said.
Oh, really?
Matt Bourne?
Yeah, he looks just like a young Matt Bourne. Oh, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. The thing with Matt Bourne I thought was so funny is I guess he worked or is working, I'm not even sure which, in British Columbia, and they were announcing, Doink the Clown, the original Doink the Clown was going to be on the card from Milwaukee, Oregon, and I thought that was just so hilarious.
I thought it was hilarious when I was reading your, ironically we were talking about the RF thing, and you just had the article a little while ago about the sex scandals and everything, and you were talking about the signed affidavit, and it was signed by the assassin. Oh, yeah. I laughed so hard at that. Only in wrestling could a masked man named the Assassin actually sign a real affidavit.
I mean, just for people who don't know the story, years ago, this would have been around 1982, David Schultz had been, I guess, investigating Vince McMahon because he was very bitter at Vince McMahon for firing him and basically ending his wrestling career. And he had gathered up all these, affidavits and stuff from different people who hated Vince McMahon for both good and bad reasons. Found out some things. And anyway, And also Hulk Hogan, because he hated Hulk Hogan, because Hulk Hogan and David Schultz, of course, started out together and then went their separate ways and even had a fight I think it was in Poughkeepsie. I could be wrong about the city, but this is around 84, and there'll be different opinions over who won that fight, but they did get in one. And Schultz, of course, got in a fight with Mr. T and ended up getting fired in 85. And, of course, the John Stossel thing that everyone knows. Well, anyway, he had this book, and I got a copy of it, of this thing, and it was a guy just writing about, Hulk Hogan was, doing this and that, and, taking steroids and everything in the Alabama territory, and it signed the assassin. So I just said, yeah, right, okay. It's like, this is great evidence, right? So I didn't even care, right? So Irv Mushnick, who is Sam Mushnick's son, who wrote several articles during that period, including one for People magazine, he's going to me like, well, who was the assassin in Alabama? And I go, come on. It's, this is obviously, bogus, right? So anyway, the assassin in that territory was Randy Cully, and Irv tracks down Randy Cully, and Randy Cully says, oh, yeah, I wrote that.
I did.
I mean, I would have never, it's like, I have my, what's it called, that radar that tells you when you're being BS'd. Yeah. And it was like, Brian, when you get something like that, it's like, okay, that's major BS.
All the time in wrestling.
What?
All the time in wrestling.
Yeah, well, because every day that happens. But, and it turns out that one was legit.
It was real.
It was real, yeah, he signed the assassin anyway. WrestleMania is coming up on Sunday, and it's number 20. And I got to ask you, okay, Brian, buy rate prediction. How many buys?
I predict 770,000. I do. I really do.
Okay. Actually, that 825. I'm going higher.
Everybody recorded the show to record that laughter that you gave me when I predict 770.
Yeah, because they don't know what that means.
You'll see.
Okay, 770 is basically the number that they had last year, which was 560, plus the money that they need for the $5 million extra that they're spending on advertising this year to make the same amount of money as they did last year. I'll tell you what, a couple of things for WrestleMania. Well, actually, only one thing for WrestleMania. The four-way on SmackDown for the tag team titles. That's Rikishi and Scotty, the APA, Hassan Benjamin, and who's the other team that I'm leaving out? The Basham Brothers. Sure. They're going to be wrestling. So, most people watching kind of knew that was coming, but unless the plans change between now and Tuesday, that is the plan. Then we've already written about it on the website, but the Triple H, Benoit, Shawn Michaels match will not be a ladder match. It was never announced a ladder match, but all along it was supposed to be a ladder match. Part of it, the 10th anniversary of the famous Shawn Michaels Razor Ramon ladder match. But not doing it. I think that they want to have a pinfall or submission finish, since I am guessing... What?
That's kind of interesting. Yeah,
I think that they want that clean finish because I think that they're going on last.
Huh.
And I don't know that to be a fact, but... obviously, this is an interesting show because there's 5 main events we've talked about before. I think that they're going to go with that one last. They'll go with either that one or the Angle Guerrero match, because you've got to go with the world title match last, because the last couple of years, even though the matches that were not the most anticipated were the title matches, they still went with the title matches last to give the illusion the title is, or impression that the title is most important, since the title thing is going forward. Brian, what do you think is the most important match as far as selling buys on this show?
As far as selling buys?
Yes, not what you would put on last, because that's a different thing.
Well, I really think the most important thing is the fact it's WrestleMania 20.
Oh, yeah.
I really don't see a match that is like a blow-away match I think is going to sell a lot of buys. I think that if I had to choose, not which one's going on last.
No, which one going on last I think is going to be one of the title matches.
Okay, but if I had to
I would say as a rule that would be the right one, but I don't know that either of those 2 title matches are the most important matches on the show. In fact, I would say that neither of them is.
As far as selling the most buys, I would probably have to go with Brock and Goldberg. Really?
Because I go with Rock and Foley against Orton, Flair, and Batista. I just think that the build-up for that match has been the best one. Although that...
Yeah, I think it has. I don't know.
We did the poll, and more people voted for Brock and Goldberg with Austin as referee. By the way, I believe, and this has not been confirmed to me, but I'm pretty darn sure, Steve Austin on SmackDown Tuesday, I think they're already advertising it in Atlantic City. So that'll be a big last thing going in, which, it's a good idea.
When I was watching the show a couple of weeks ago, and Hunter was going off on his huge speech about how it was WrestleMania 20 and the biggest show of all time, all I could think was, I know this man's going to get cold feet. I know it's going to happen right before he goes through the curtain. He's going to get cold feet.
It hasn't happened yet. Well, I don't know. Actually, I shouldn't say that, but I'm pretty sure it hasn't happened yet.
No, I don't think it's happened yet, but I expect it to happen like Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
What was I going to say? What's your reaction, to the whole situation with Rob Feinstein and Ring of Honor right now?
Well, all I know was, and I told you this earlier, that was like the strangest day because the reaction online from people, I mean, to so many people, this was like the biggest wrestling story since like WCW died. As far as just, it was just kind of amazing that something like this. I mean, not like it's not a big story or anything.
Well, he is one of the he was one of the more powerful people and well-known people in the industry as far as to the online people because Ring of Honor was, Ring of Honor is the number, I would say you could make a case that Ring of Honor is the number 3 pro wrestling promotion in the country, and he was the owner and may technically still be the owner as of today, although won't be within a few days.
Yeah. Well, one thing,
or at least technically,
that really sort of disturbed me about the reaction was just like the glee that some people had.
Well, he had a lot of enemies, but I know.
He did, but at the same time, it's like, okay, yes, but look at what he was doing. There should be no glee involved.
Allegedly doing, but yeah, I know what you're
doing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
I don't have any trouble here, but yeah.
Well, I don't anticipate trouble on this account. Believe me. Some people do, but I don't.
Yeah.
As far as long term, I mean, what are your thoughts as far as how it affects Ring of Honor?
I don't know, because it's kind of interesting because I expected if wrestlers were going to pull out, I figured it would happen that afternoon or the next day.
Well, the only ones are Bobby Heenan and Loki, and we'll talk to Bobby Heenan in the second hour about that.
And I think that
and neither of them were regulars anyway.
Yeah, and I think that if nobody else has yet, nobody else is going to.
I don't think anyone else is going to.
And if I just think that if the wrestlers aren't going to pull out, and I really think this will not have a major effect on the company. I could be totally wrong, but I think that wrestling fans will they'll look at it as a game project and a.
Well, it will be.
Yeah.
I don't know, but okay, wrestling. Again, wrestling fans know, but as far as like people want to do business with them and a lot of other things, you don't know. I mean, it sure gives their enemies a lot of ammunition, and when you go into it...
Yeah, but really, they don't have, a ton... The Ring of Honor itself doesn't have a ton of enemies.
They have enough that they had to move locations 3 times in Boston alone.
Yeah, they have that situation.
And that can... There's independent promoters that will be very upset at them coming in their town and every town they go to.
Yeah.
So that's where I think, I don't know, where it could be really bad. We're going to head to a break right now, and we're going to come back. We should have Tom Cole up, and we'll start taking phone calls. All lines are lit up, so we'll start getting those as soon as we can. Our number is 1-800-878-PLAY, but as soon as someone hangs up, then you can jump in. Okay, you're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. And, of course, if you're looking for how to get information on how to subscribe to either of those publications, you can go to www.wrestlingobserver.com. And there's also news updates every day as well as info on Figure 4 Weekly, which is the funniest read in wrestling that you'll find, and Wrestling Observer, which is the real insider's look. There's so much news in there every week that drives me crazy because I'm the one writing it, but that's another story. And as weird things happen in this business, and believe me, weird things happen in this business so much.
Daily.
Yes. Last week, I wrote a story on what basically was what happened in World Wrestling Federation in 1991 and early 1992, and it was that was a very scandalous period. We talked a little bit about it earlier, and one of the key people in this was Tom Cole, and Tom is on the line, and I wrote about it, and then, I'm writing about this thing, and then the Rob Feinstein thing happens, literally just a couple days later. And there was another example of that. I forget what it was, where I had written something, and then, it happened right away. I don't remember what it was, And
how about John being called up, and it happened the next week?
John Hennigan was on Raw. I know.
I just wrote this big, long tirade about John Hennigan. Of all the people in Ohio Valley, I picked him out. It's a man who must not be brought up, and that Monday on Raw, there he was.
Because they don't watch, and we do.
That's right.
And that's scary, isn't it?
It is. It's very terrifying.
But not nearly as, Tom's here. Tom, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the Feinstein situation. I got to ask you something. Whenever something like this comes up in wrestling, sometimes I have to sit back and go like, when all of us are fans of wrestling, and Tom, it's almost amazing that you still are a big fan of wrestling, and pretty much a lifelong fan like all of us.
Once you get it in your blood, it's hard to get out, I guess.
Yeah, but the thing is like, there are... I'm not trying to say that the whole profession is sleazy or anything like that, but there are some, really unbelievably sleazy people, and sometimes, I almost sit back and go, I've met some people through wrestling, I mean, some good people and bad people and a lot of different people, and it's kind of amazing, but, they're just people that, when you're, 18 years old, you don't think that, you're going to be socializing with people who, things like this are going to happen to, and it happened again, and I don't know if you have thoughts as far as that goes, but I know you wanted to talk a little bit about Rob Feinstein.
Yeah, I do have. It's funny, I was reading The Observer. I recommend it to any wrestling fan, and I truly mean that. I was just thinking of what a great job you did on the article, and I wanted to write to you. So I was ready to email you, and then I stumbled across the stuff about Rob Feinstein, and it was just so funny. I said, "Jesus, this is amazing. You just wrote about this. I'm going to email you and tell you what a good job I thought you did on it, and it was very fair." And then this jumps out about Rob Feinstein. I said, only in wrestling. I said, it's just insane. And I'll tell you, this guy is, it's just so disturbing. I mean, like I said, he's got one thing against him, which is this. We don't know if there's any other, actual victims. I can't imagine there wouldn't be, because I doubt that a guy, if you read the transcript of the chat he had with the supposed 14-year-old.
It was really hard to read it for me.
Yeah.
Especially because I know, I've probably known Rob Feinstein since he was a teenager. Yeah,
so I've met him probably 10, 15 times. So I used to go to ECW a lot. I met him. I've had conversations with him, and I tell you, I was shocked, and I said to myself, I guess you can't be shocked. You have to put that on the back burner when you're around wrestling in any way. You can't be shocked by anything. And, I just think that they have to, disassociate themselves as much as possible with Rob. But I don't believe that that's going to be as easy as the Rowe company is leading us to believe. I mean, anyone knows that this guy's pretty much the sole owner of the company. It's not so easy to just step down from something that you own, Well,
especially with the video thing. I mean, it's probably since he's been doing
his baby. I mean,
he's been doing RF video forever.
Yeah, that's his baby. It's not just some guy's going to come in and take it over for him. I mean, it's not some huge corporation where someone's waiting to in the wings, or so to speak, to take over like the WWF at one point. But
but as far as the name RF video obviously has to go and is going.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But then what do you lose with that? Do you lose the aura of RF videos? It's known, it's known simply for what it is, the tapes, they're known by that name. Is it going to be easy to go on? I don't know. I mean, are people going to want to support something that, let's face it, for a long time to come, until they get some money to buy him out completely, which I don't think is such an easy thing to do. This guy is going to continue to make money. And to this day, this minute, I don't think, we know the deal. But, the average person might not realize this guy, he's still going to be making money off of this. And I'm just so concerned that there are other victims. That's my main concern, because I always said about Mel Phillips with the WWF, the one thing I was thankful for, and I'm more thankful as I get older, and, I guess I'm not as, hurting as much. As you grow older, you grow more mature. And the WWF took Candy, which was wrestling, away from Mel. He doesn't have that anymore. I'm sure he's still doing what he did, but he doesn't have the WWF to jingle in front of anyone. And this guy, Rob Feinstein, same thing. As long as he's around wrestling, that's like a Candy. I mean, he's still going to, he can continue to do what he's done or allegedly has done, And I'll tell you right now, as far as to say, I can only imagine there has to be other people. There has to be other kids, actual victims.
It's really hard for me to comment on this, because it's a legal matter, and you just don't know. And that when I first saw the transcript, I mean, the first thing I thought is like, and I think Bryan told me the same thing off the air. It's like, we knew that this guy had a lot of enemies, and I've seen like the lengths that people will go. But, as the time went on, I mean, clearly, when the minute, he is publicly divesting himself. And then again, what does that mean? I mean, like with Ishii and K1, with Vince and everything, in the 90s. I mean, people say it, and I mean, and Vince did get rid of Terry Garvin, he did get rid of Mel Phillips, but then, we have the Pat Patterson story, and at the time in 1992, and I'm not saying that, I don't know what to say about Pat Patterson because Vince always stood behind Pat Patterson in this situation. However, Pat Patterson did resign. Vince McMahon told people Pat Patterson would never be in the company again. And
well, I don't know if I shared this, but Vince McMahon came to me before Pat Patterson came back and asked. He did do that much.
Yeah, I know.
And
but I wonder, and everyone, I mean, in hindsight, going back, I mean, the big thing in wrestling was that he was probably never gone.
Yeah, let's face it. I mean, I won't kid myself. I was a pawn in the whole thing. But as I get older, I realized the relevancy of them getting rid of Mel Phillips and Terry Garvin. I mean, sitting back, just recently thinking about it, giving it great thought to it, and just in a sense being thankful that they did that. I still, on occasion, I talk to Jerry McDivitt.
Do you really?
And, yeah, I do. It's pretty sociable.
Really?
I went to the Nicole Bass when she went to trial.
Uh-huh.
She called me several times.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't believe, at first I believed some of the stuff she said, and then I didn't believe some of the stuff she said. And I always wanted to be known as somebody who told the truth about a lot of things that happened to me. And I didn't like, she called me, and there was just some things that put a bad taste in my mouth.
Such as?
Well, things about, I guess, when she was on the plane and somebody grabbed her breast.
Yeah, Lombardi, and your leg Lombardi did it, and yeah, right.
Yeah, and she just, her story changed to me, without going into great detail for legal reasons, she changed her story quite a bit to me on the phone, and
Oh, that's the bad sign.
Yeah, and I stopped taking her calls. She called me a couple of times after that. And
now, you actually went to the trial, though?
Yeah, I did go to the trial.
Now, what happened, like, as far as, there were a couple of, like, ex-women wrestlers and stuff that did testify for her, though, right? Yeah, I went to the trial for one day, which was actually rather funny, because I hadn't seen Jerry McDivitt so long, and he noticed me. It was just, a very funny thing, to see me there. And then I went up to Linda because I always wanted to, my big thing was I thought, after everything that happened to me, I wanted them to see that I made it, that I didn't depend on them or anybody else to help me along, after they got rid of me. And it was I don't know what it was, but I just wanted to say, look at me, I didn't fall off the face of the earth. Mm-hmm. I became something, I made something in my life, I didn't take a free ride anywhere. And so that's one of the reasons I went there. And I talked to Linda in the hallway briefly, and I told her, I part of me wants to believe that your husband never knew anything about it because I didn't realize, when he came out in his story, Vince, of all that happened to him, that he was... Oh, when Vince was a child, yeah.
Yeah, abused. And I didn't know a lot of that stuff. And I want to believe, that somebody that went through something like that, such as I did, wouldn't allow it to happen to somebody else, because I know I wouldn't. And that's why I'm coming out about, the Rob Feinstein thing, because, I'm associated in a sense with wrestling, and, I follow it a lot, and if I could do anything to make, save any kid from having to go through anything, I would do it, and I...
Now, when you were there, though, there were though, people who, if they didn't know it, certainly suspected stuff. Because
absolutely.
Because even like Ventura told you, like, stay away from guys and things like that.
Jesse Ventura had said it. Even like Bobby Heenan, I had a situation with him. And it's funny because the last time I was on your show a couple of years ago, Bobby Heenan, I think, was on before me.
And now it's on right after you.
On after me.
Yeah.
We had a situation, Bobby and I, because of what he wrote in his book. I thought he took an unnecessary shot, blaming a victim. But I have to give the guy credit for backing out of the shows in Chicago. Now, that's what I read on the internet.
Yeah, and he is.
And I applaud him for that, And I truly do. I think that's the right stand to take, because it's not just someone coming forward and saying, I came forward and I had allegations, and other people did. But that Did I have a transcript? Did the news catch me, on video? I mean, these are some strong things that are allegations that are backed up because, let's face it, it's in writing, and he went to a house, and they caught him in this Ralph Feinstein and a sting. But even when I was with the WWF, Mel used to videotape, what he did to kids. And those videotapes were never found.
Yeah.
And that was a smoking gun. I mean, they got rid of.
Well, we got to go ahead to a break right now. We're going to be back with more right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. We're here with Bryan Alvarez, Figure 4 Weekly, as well as Tom Cole, a second hour Bobby Heenan. And Tom Cole was, I guess, a victim in WWE scandal from 1992. Basically, in a nutshell, you were working as a ring boy, and Terry Garvin invited you over to his house and wanted to do something with you that, and you said no, and you found yourself fired.
Exactly.
That's basically what started everything that happened. Yeah.
That's exactly. I started the ball rolling. Then my brother got involved. He went to Phil Mustick. He seen an article about steroids. He asked me about, whatever happened to you in the WWF, and I never told anyone but my sister. When Terry hit on me at his house there, I told my sister what happened. And I think I'd even told my father, who didn't really have that much to do with, but I told him what had happened, and I told him, listen, this guy came on to me and said, I could have a job, because everyone knew when I was a kid I'd go to wrestling all the time, and I guess everybody thought I'd have a career in it someday. But then everything, came out, like the stuff with Mel Phillips and, things that happened to me when I was younger, and I didn't think that, Terry Garvin was like that, but, he was, and it turned out that he was a vicious guy because I said no, and then, I had no job, that I was promised. And it was a tough thing because I always thought, I'd be in wrestling. I thought that's what I would do, And he just snatched that right away. Even when I went back to the WWF in '92, it wasn't the same. Like, I used to be so excited, to wrestling.
You ended up, it was really. Now, when you look back at that situation, I mean, because, I just did last week, writing about it, and I started looking back at my notes, and it was almost amazing week after week, and trying to separate the, and this went for both sides. To this day, I mean, there's some stuff that I believe to be true, and certainly your story, obviously.
Yes.
There's some stuff that I know isn't true, and then there's a lot of stuff that's in between.
No, I totally agree, agree with that. I mean, there are people that came forward that I wouldn't believe. I mean, Superstar Billy Graham, jumped on the bandwagon, and I never spoke to Superstar Billy Graham, ever. My brother did. The same with Orton. I never spoke to him, ever. My brother had all those conversations with these guys. It's funny because I know I read in the Observer, that Orton had said to you before, the Donahue show, that he talked to me regularly, but he wasn't able to get in touch with me. I don't know if my brother was disguising himself as me or not. It wouldn't surprise me, to say the least. I mean, even when I went back to the WWF, my brother was a big obstacle there. And it probably didn't help that he wouldn't let me, at least have some kind of normalcy, go back and, these people are trying to do the right thing. And he never let that happen, it didn't even give it a chance, in a sense.
Of all the people that came forward, what percentage of them do you think were just jumping on the bandwagon?
I didn't so much believe the Murray Hodgkins thing.
I mean, I did at first. I will say that. But,
yeah.
But I mean, there were, after a certain amount of time, it was very clear. I talked to Murray Hodgkins. Murray Hodgkins was. Did you ever speak to him personally?
Well, I told you the story when I went to the Donahue show with Vince and Linda and Elizabeth, and we were leaving, and we went to get in the elevator, and Vince, it was closing, and he pushed it open, and we get in, and we didn't even realize. I looked at Vince, and I go, looking back at you, and he looked in back of him, and Murray Hodgkins was just standing right in back.
In the same elevator after that big argument that they had.
Elevator right after the show. If looks could kill, man.
Oh, my God.
He'd have been a dead man.
I'm surprised Vince didn't try to choke him.
It was unbelievable, but, Vince, I guess he handled it good, you almost wish that things turned out different. But all the people that did, there were a lot of people. I mean, there was a guy that came forward with me, Chris Lose, and this guy just disappeared. I mean, he called me crying, like, after this started coming to the surface and saying, because I hadn't talked to him in several years, and he says, it's so good to, talk to you. It's, especially being a guy. I mean, it's not easy for a guy to come forward. It's not easy for anybody to come forward and admit that, somebody took advantage of you. And he came forward, and then the WWF got to him, and he just was, he never talked to me again. He wouldn't return my calls, and he'd hang up on me. It was just amazing, And there were other people when
the one guy, and I think his name was Bill Doxey. Did you know him when you were a kid?
Bill Doxey.
Because he was a resident Poughkeepsie on.
And that's not far from, believe it or not, it's a small world. That's not far from where I live now. I don't live in Poughkeepsie, but I live in the area.
Yeah, I mean, but it was, I think it was about a year ago. I don't know if you read it because I did.
No, I read it. I did. I read it.
And it's just like, oh my God, it's like because that was a name that I had heard back in '92, and he never came forward. And
he supported Mel.
And he totally supported Mel Phillips and said nothing ever happened, and then here he is. Whatever it is, 10 years later, and he's arrested for abusing
his predator.
What?
And he's the predator now.
Yeah.
Maybe he couldn't come to grips with what happened, and maybe he didn't seek help, and maybe he denied, what Mel did to him, and that's what happened.
So do you think that more people backed out because they got scared?
I think people
because they weren't even telling the truth in the first place.
I think it's both.
I think it is both, but I think a lot of people were, in my opinion, were paid off in some way or fashion.
We don't know that, but just want to think that
people just disappeared and that was it, And it was pretty amazing. I mean, look what they did with me. I came forward and then boom, I just any interview I gave was squashed, everything else. I mean,
going through the whole thing, and you were, there's no question. Like when I look back on that whole thing, you were a pawn of everyone. It seemed like
absolutely, it was a terrible time, man.
Yeah, especially for you. We were like 23 years old then, or something.
I was less than that. I was 21.
Wow,
I just turned 21, and I'll tell you, it was horrible. I think of it now, like trying to go to school. My head, man, was spinning like you wouldn't believe. I mean, Pulled in One Direction by Phil Mushnick because I believed in the guy so much that I was pulled in one direction by the WWF, who I really wanted to believe because, let's face it,
you were a kid who was a wrestling fan.
Yeah, I was a fan. It's Vince McMahon. It's Linda McMahon. They're telling me that they would have never allowed that, and they believed me. They want to fix it. Then my brother, and my brother, let's face it, he's my brother, and, I guess I love him as a brother, but not as a friend or anything else because, I mean, he made it more impossible than anybody. I mean, he just wouldn't let me breathe. He was all about, getting money. I mean, I settled for just my back pay. I was never in it for money, regardless of what anyone wants to think. I had lawyers saying you could get millions of dollars, but I truly wanted the right thing to be done. I truly was a fan. I truly didn't want to see wrestlers get hurt. That's why it hurt me so much, with Bobby Heenan, what he wrote in his book, because it was guys like that I didn't go forward. I could have said, flip the bird to Vince McMahon and the WWF at that time and just went completely steamrolled ahead and went on every talk show. And believe me, I had every one of them lined up and could have done a lot of damage. But I said, I want to do the right thing because I know as a kid growing up in wrestling that not everybody's bad. Not everybody's like this. I don't want to destroy the whole industry. And then for a guy like, Bobby Heenan to come out and write that in a book, that hurt, man. That's why I was so upset about it with Bobby Heenan and things because it just was so uncalled for. I was a victim. I didn't ask for things that to happen to me, and it wasn't as easy a situation as it was made out to believe, for people to make out,
Yeah, well, I mean, especially with all the stuff that's going on, I just remember going through that whole thing, and it's like you don't know what to believe, and it was just it turned into like a real big thing, and everyone was basically trying to cover themselves. I felt
that is true, but you know what happened? And I'm not going to get into names, but when I went back, I had several people within the WWF come up to me and say thank you for stepping up because
really?
This will stop. But these were guys who I was so shocked that they actually allowed that to happen to them with Terry Garvin. Like they didn't say no. And they were there, and then they were gone when I came back. The one guy had a bad drug problem, and this guy was a tough guy from the New England area, and I remember him being there in wrestling. He was older than I was, and it blew my mind that that happened that he allowed that to happen to himself with Terry Garvin, and he had a wife and kids, and you would never tough New Englander with the talk and everything, and it was amazing that this guy, he allowed that to happen, and that's what I think why a lot of people, there were a lot of victims that didn't come forward because they, especially with Terry, they allowed it to happen. They went, they sold their soul, I didn't, thank God,
well,
I desired to.
Do you think that this is something, I don't know, is it a wrestling thing or is it a power thing?
I think something like this, because I do executive protection work now for the last several years. I won't say with who, but with corporations. And the more I do it, the more you see that it's possible that, it is a power thing. You see all kinds of stuff. And maybe it's not so much just the wrestling industry. I think it's everywhere. And that's why, now I say, thank God that Vince and Linda McMahon did, regardless of what kind of gesture they were making or weren't making, did get rid of Terry Garvin and Mel Phillips, because that was the most important thing to do. I mean, right there, that saves a lot. Mel Phillips, in my opinion, is no doubt still doing what he used to do, but he's not doing it to the degree that he once was able to. And they took that away from him, and thank God that they did. And I realize that now as I'm in the world and you see how things work and you see how, the money and power, the craziest things happen when you combine those two, because you get everything you want and no one ever says no to you. And I think it's everywhere. I don't think it's just wrestling. I think it's everywhere.
Do you think, if the Feinstein story is true, that it was a combination of kind of like, when you run your own company, you have the power, and when you're in an industry as sleazy as wrestling can be, that the moral, there's that feeling that I'm untouchable,
Oh, absolutely.
and I can get away with something, and in wrestling, because in many cases the morals aren't there, like in other businesses. What you can get away with, is I don't know. I don't know if there's anything to this, but it's
I kind of see it as something where X number of people do this in society, and in a smaller society, but like wrestling, you're still going to have the same percentage. I really don't think it's so much a wrestling thing. I just think it's there are people like that everywhere in life.
Yeah, I mean, you could go into, and again, I realize this more and more as I grow older. You could go into any restaurant. I guarantee you there's a guy that owns it, or he's in some type of power. He's using that to his advantage to be a dirtbag. And Rob Feinstein, I mean, good example. You're talking about a guy was selling tapes, and then he had his own promotion. You have people coming to you for jobs. You have a lot. He has a lot of power.
Yeah.
And that could go to somebody's head. It doesn't take much. And then,
Tom, we got to head to a break right now. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. We're here with Tom Cole. And, Bryan, before you got to go, because Bryan's got to go in just a couple minutes, Tom's got to go too. Bobby Heenan up in the second hour, talking about his book, Chair Shots and Other Obstacles. Switch talk to WrestleMania, which is, of course, next Sunday, WrestleMania 20. Tom.
Yeah.
Did you ever think there was going to be a WrestleMania 20? I mean, I don't know.
It's amazing that it's been 20 years,
I know. To me, it's a really weird thing, because I remember, number one so vividly.
So do I. I remember when the footage was on the news after it happened. After WrestleMania was over, it was on national news. It was just I remember being a fan and being.
I remember because I was a fan well before the WWF expansion. And I was a fan of a lot of the regional companies, and I remember going to the show, and live in San Francisco for the closed circuit, there was tremendous energy at the show. It was a big success, and it was sold out. And I was just going home going this is the end of wrestling as I know it. I mean, and it was. I mean, it took a couple of years. Wrestling changed, and obviously as you get older, you realize wrestling will always change. But it was a weird thing, because it was it was bigger than it ever was, but I knew that it was that wrestling that a lot of people my age grew up with, the regional variety and things like that. I knew that it was done because like Crockett was able to compete with Vince for several years, and so was Turner. But the rest of those guys, they weren't going to have a chance. It was too big and too strong.
Could you imagine back then, like, what would happen during the war? Could you even imagine something like that happening, and then the situation it is right now?
As far as just one company?
Yeah.
I actually thought that it was going to end up that way a lot, probably 15 years before it happened. I thought it was going to end up one company. I thought it was going to be Vince. I didn't think that anybody was able to compete, and it was only because Crockett got TBS and the Road Warriors and Flair and all that great talent that he had that he was able to stay on as long, and then because Ted wanted wrestling on the station, it kept going. So, but anyway, Tom, I want to thank you very much for joining us, and really, thanks for coming on, because it's very weird time in wrestling, and you got an interesting perspective on it.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
And Bryan, good luck tonight. Bryan, real quick, what do you think is going to be the best match on the show Sunday?
Best match on the show?
Yes.
I will go out on a limb and say the three-way, even though it has not been getting great reviews so far. Okay. I will. And my second guess.
Are you there?
Everyone's going to be shocked with that one.
What's your second guess?
Rock and Goldberg.
Yeah, I'm shocked with that one. Okay, Bryan, have a good match tonight. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. We'll be back with Bryan in a couple of weeks. We'll be back with Bobby Heenan right after the break. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network.
Welcome back to Hour 2 of the Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Bryan Alvarez.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Let's get it on!
Okay, welcome to the second hour here on Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter. We're going to be joined by Bobby Heenan in about 4 minutes. We've got a couple of phone lines, by the way, at 1-800-878-PLAY. You can jump on board to talk to Bobby Heenan. And actually, I'm going to start with Ed in San Antonio. Ed, what's going on?
Hey, Dave, my computer crashed about a week ago, man. It's just a total shock hearing your show tonight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with all the stuff that's going on. I mean, wow, that's pretty crazy. One of the questions I want to ask you is, okay, you have this incident right now with Rob Feinstein. You have the incident around 92 with your the guest that was on earlier, Tom Cole.
Yeah.
You have rumors like from the early 80s, I'll just throw out Tommy Rich Barnett.
Yeah.
Okay, are these isolated incidents, or is this like a black guy that followed wrestling throughout the decades?
What's funny is I've been thinking that same thing this whole week, and probably there's far more than we hear about. Probably. I don't want. The hard part about this is, you hear so many rumors, okay, and anyone who in the nature of wrestling, there's so many rumors, and anyone who is gay in power, there's going to be even more rumors. I mean, there are people who are gay in power in different wrestling organizations around the world right now, and if a nice-looking young guy gets a big push, there are going to be people who are going to go, aha, this is why he got the push. There's Tommy Rich rumors with a perfect example. That doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean it's not true. I mean, I know a promotion in Mexico, obviously, where anytime the rumor's going to pop up, whether it's true or not true. And in most cases, some of the guys who were rumored, were like awesome workers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Who deserved the push and then some. So it's that the nature of the business. Rumors are going to get started, and God, I couldn't say is it prevalent. I think it is, because these things come up every now and then. Of course, whatever allegedly was involving Feinstein, as best we can tell, had nothing to do with business, and I have heard no allegations from anyone doing well in Ring of Honor because of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily a business thing. It's a guy who was running a business that, if there's an issue, it's a pretty big problem with him. But it's outside of wrestling, other than the fact that the guy owns a wrestling company.
If I hear the music, but I just also bought the DVD that you did, the Legends video with Jim Cornette, and I was wondering, do you guys plan on doing any more videos? I
hope so, but there's nothing planned on the works. We've done I think Jim Cornette and I have done about 5 or 6 of them now.
Yeah, it'd be great if you could go maybe do like a tape on every territory.
Man, we were offered, or the person who was in charge of it was named Kit Parker. He was offered Mid-South, but I think that, realistically, the last set of tapes didn't do as well as he expected, and so I don't think that he's going to be doing anymore, unfortunately. It's funny because in the 80s, he released the Wrestling Gold tapes, and they were an incredible success. And then when he re-released them later, I guess time had gone by and it was a different time and everything. They were not as big a success. So,
thanks for taking my call, Dave.
Okay, you're very welcome, Ed. We'll be back with more right after this. You'll listen to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network. Well, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, and we are joined in the second hour here by Bobby Heenan. Is Bobby up? I don't hear Bobby. Bobby.
Hello.
Bobby.
Yo.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing really good. This has been quite an interesting show and quite an interesting week in wrestling. I mean, when we booked you, it was you have the book, Chair Shots and Other Obstacles. It just came out, and we were going to talk about the book, and then all kinds of things are happening. I think that we need to talk about. I guess the first thing.
Give me the scoops.
Well, first, of course, Hercules, who you managed in the WWF.
Yeah.
Was found in Tampa, dead yesterday, and I don't know, any memories of Ray Fernandez?
Yeah, he had a real dry sense of humor. I remember one day we were standing at the Newark airport, and the Vince had a dress code. Well, I always wore sports coats and slacks and suits anyway, but other guys didn't. So we're standing at the airport there in Newark, and Ray's got a pair of zebras on there said World Gym on them with the butt rip out of them.
Oh, that's nice.
He's got a sweatshirt on that says World Gym, and he's got he's bleeding on one side of his head open, and he's got a bandage on the other side that's covering nothing. And he's got a chain wrapped around his neck, and he's standing there with his bag underneath this canopy, and we're waiting for the bus to come from the hotel, the Marriott, to pick us up to take us to the hotel. So we're standing there, and it's cold. And there's a button there that says, push button for heat. So I'm standing there with him, and about 6 guys are salesmen. They look like Bob Newhart. We're all standing there. So Ray says to one of those business salesmen, he says, remember, it says push here for heat. So Ray says, what happens if you push that? Does the guy come out and pull your tights?
Oh, jeez.
See, the only guy in the business would get that.
Of course.
I'm on my knees.
And then the rest of those guys are going, what did he just say?
Pardon?
And everyone else in the elevator?
No, we're in an elevator. We're in a canopy waiting
for
the limo bus.
Right.
And they just took off. But, I mean, and the last time I saw him, my daughter had a basketball game, and his daughter was on the other team, and we talked for a little bit at the gym for about 20 minutes. But I hadn't seen him for years, and my daughter's 25 now, so that was, that was 12 and 13 years ago.
Oh, wow, it's been that long since you've seen him. You both live in the same city, or same area, basically.
Yeah. Well, I never see anybody anyway. Don't forget, I've seen Sky Lobo and Andre the Giant naked. There's nothing more I want to see with the boys.
Also, you were going to be, you were scheduled to work for Ring of Honor, and then everything that happened with Rob Feinstein came across. And what's the main reason as far as, not doing the show?
That's it.
Yep.
I don't want to be involved in any promotion where someone is guilty of that or someone is accused of that. He's innocent until proven guilty. If he is proven innocent, or if there are charges filed or anything like that, down the road, we'll see. I don't know, but I'm against anything like that, and I don't want to be involved in anything like that.
Now you've got you're going this weekend. Actually, you're going to WrestleMania 20, and you went. What was it? 2 years ago, right? For the Battle Royal.
Was that 2 years ago? No, it was 3 years ago. It must have been. That was 17, I think.
Okay. Oh, that's okay. So it was 3 years ago. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it was Houston. Sure. God, time flies.
The funny thing is, I'm being indicted into the.
Indicted.
Same thing. Inducted into the Hall of Fame on March 13th. And 2 years ago, on March 13th, I was laying in a hospital bed because they just taken my 2 lymph nodes out of my throat.
Yeah.
That was 700 and some days ago.
Wow.
Isn't that funny how life is?
It is. You know,
You gotta enjoy it.
Yeah, I know. When I was reading your book, I mean, the one thing that I sensed from reading your book is that you know, obviously, you know, the thing that's happened with you, and also as far as that, you know, and your wife. I mean, it's been quite the life-altering experience for you.
Well, yeah, it was. But you know, I don't think about the past that much. I'm not that kind of a guy. You know, saying I don't get mad, I get even. I don't do that either. I don't get mad and I don't get even. I get hurt. If I really like somebody and they upset me or something, well, then it hurts me. And that's how I feel about things. So as long as I told my wife, we got to keep our humor about it. We have a daughter that's 25 years of age, or at that time 22, 23. It was our main concern to make her happy, not us happy. So we just keep on going. We just have a different thinking, I guess, than most people. But that's the only thing on my mind was just to keep on going.
You know, in the book, you know, the book you talk about a lot about kind of trying to find humor in everything in life, which I guess has kind of been your philosophy anyway, as well as you know, a lot of wrestling stories about your career, breaking in with Dick the Bruiser, working for Vern Gagne, working with Harley Race, Ole Anderson, you know, all the different places that you've gone. You know, you started in the business mid-'60s, right?
I started in 1961 selling coats and carrying jackets and setting the ring. And in 65, I started managing and in the ring. Yeah.
And that was, you know, you were in Indianapolis, and were they just short a manager, or what? You know, Dick the Bruiser was the one who made the call, right?
Well, you know, it's funny. I'm the only guy I never asked to be in wrestling. I was drafted. That's the truth. I was carrying jackets, and I was working for a dealership in Indianapolis, a Ford dealership, and I was a car jockey. And then we'd bring the cars on the trucks, and then they'd take them off. I never drove them off, but they'd take them off the trucks. And then I would take the serial number and put it down and make sure it matched the keys and the paperwork. Then I'd go to the office and I'd put it in a file. And then I'd go sit in the wash rack with a guy named Willie, and we'd listen to the Motown all day and have a great time. We'd sit there and chew tobacco and smoke cigarettes and listen to music. Every time they needed a car, I'd bring one up. That was all I did. But on the weekends, I was a second. I would carry jackets back and forth and set the ring up and stuff. And one day I got a call at work, and Bruiser told me to be at TV tomorrow at noon. I was the new manager of the Assassins. He said, "I'll see you there, Bobby," and he hung up.
No, he called. No, you were Ray at that point.
Yes, I was never Bobby. I was working at a Ford dealership, and he said Bobby, so I thought he had the wrong name. So I called him back. And actually, I had to call home to get his number from my book, from my mother, because I didn't have Bruiser's number on me. We didn't socially exist. So I called him back and I said, "Dick, this is Ray Heenan." I said, "I think you got the wrong guy." He said, "No, your new name is Bobby," and he hung up with me. So I didn't know what to expect. So I took an extra long lunch hour and I went there and they had me do interviews. Now that night, they had me meet at Holiday Inn in Columbus, Indiana, Greenwood, Indiana. And we got in the car, and Guy Mitchell and myself and Bruiser and Wilbur Snyder drove to Louisville, Kentucky, and they smarted me up in the car.
Now, you were, I guess, nationally, I think that you got your first recognition when you started working in Chicago, and in the late 60s and early 70s, for people who remember the old wrestling magazines, you know, you were on the cover because you and Blackjack Lanza were always feuding with Dick the Bruiser, and they were always bloodbaths, and you were, and then eventually that led to working in the AWA, if I'm correct, right?
Well, yeah. See, when I was working for Bruiser, I wanted to step up. I mean, you know, everybody wants to better themselves. And the business, Vern had a bit bigger territory and bigger towns, and you guys made more money there. So in 1969, I left the Bruiser and Snyder, and I went to Minneapolis, and Jack and I went there, and we stayed there until 71. And all this time, I went back and forth from Minneapolis to home, but I didn't work there. And then I went back home after 71. I went to Japan, and then came back. And then I decided they didn't seem like we were going to do anything, so I wanted to go back home. So Jack and I went back to Indianapolis, and then Mulligan had just finished in New York, and he came over with us, and Indianapolis popped, and they got a better TV, and they had Sam Menaker, the announcer, and they had Pepper Gomez, and we worked a little angle, and everything really got hot there. I had Ernie Ladd, and Bruno came in, and then the Sheik and I, and Bruiser and Bobo, and so there was a lot of great talent there then for a small territory. And then we'd work St. Louis out of there and stuff, and then I lasted there until 74, and I just couldn't take him anymore. So I went to Minneapolis, and that was it. And then I left there in Minneapolis in 79 and went down to Georgia for Georgia Championship Wrestling, and lasted there a year, and then I went back to Minneapolis, and I went to WWF and WCW, and I'm on the phone with Dave Meltzer.
All right, we are going to go head to a break right now. We're going to we got one phone line open for Bobby Heenan at 1-800-878-PLAY. We'll start taking your calls in just a couple of minutes. His book is called Chair Shots and Other Obstacles. It just came out. Winning Life's Wrestling Matches, and it's about both his wrestling career and his observations of life through the eyes of someone who's been in wrestling and the eyes of someone who's looking at life outside of wrestling. We're going to also want to talk about that transition from wrestling to being outside of wrestling after spending practically an entire lifetime in wrestling. We're back with more with Bobby Heenan right after this. You listen to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Bobby Heenan, whose book Chair Shots and Other Obstacles, Winning Life's Wrestling Matches, has just come out. And Bobby, one of the things when I read the book, it was an interesting comment that you made, that when you were in wrestling, you would sometimes talk to the older wrestlers, and they would say that, we don't ever watch wrestling. And you said that you didn't really want to be like that, but then when you were no longer in wrestling, you didn't watch it so closely either. What's your thoughts as far as, what made it hard, I guess, to watch wrestling, let's say after WCW folded, or probably in the last 2 years of WCW, even when you were working there, for that matter?
I didn't watch wrestling when I was at WCW. Yeah. I didn't watch wrestling when I was commentating. No, I was funny. It's a great question, Dave, but it's difficult to answer, because when I got out of wrestling, I was the only person that was drafted. I told you, by Bruiser. Yeah. And I'm the only person that got out of wrestling because I had to. I didn't get out of wrestling because I wanted to. It's because I had cancer. So when I was out for those 2 years, I didn't watch any wrestling. I was sick. So I don't know what went on at WCW or with WWF at that time, because I was sick. I probably was only awake 2 or 3 hours a day. Wow. It was easier to try to sleep this whole thing through than do anything else. So I stayed I didn't eat sometimes for a month. I was on a feeding tube. So I really didn't watch anything. I watched the sunlight come up, and then I knew it was alive. That was about it. But, no, so I didn't know what was going on or anything. I watched, remember that Sniper in D.C.? I watched that whole story. I watched people get married on soap operas and have kids and get divorced and turn out to be their grandmother Thursday. I mean, I watched more stuff than you could believe. But I slept an awful lot. So in the evenings, I was never awake that long. Mm-hmm. What? So I don't really know what was happening that much with WCW at that time.
Now, when you were in WCW, we go back, because they just released the Monday Night War DVD, and it was a lot of stuff with Bischoff and Vince, and just talking about that whole period from late 1995 till it ended in early 2001, and you were the announcer on Nitro for a lot of that period, and one of the things that, and a lot of people know this, is that, Bischoff was always, I don't know how much he was pressuring you, but he certainly was wanting you to take knocks at the other guys, particularly since you were there for so long, and you would never do that.
He wanted me to do what? Oh, Vince and stuff?
No, I mean, like when the war was on. I mean, didn't he want you? I mean, to take shots at Vince while you were on Nitro?
Well, he asked me once. He said, "How come you never take a shot at him?" I said, "Well, I'm paid by this company to put over our product, and if I talk about Vince, I'm putting Vince over. Plus, if I knock Vince, I'm knocking myself. I was there 10 years, almost 10 years, so." It's like the guy said, when I married her, I knew she was no good from that day one. How long were you married? We were married 37 years. Well, then why didn't you unload her? Before you walked down the steps, before the cans in the car started hitting the pavement. Throw her out. But no, so I couldn't do that. Plus, Vince had never done anything wrong with me. I don't do things like that.
Yeah.
If it's something personal, that don't work in this business. It has to be entertainment. Personal things don't work.
We're going to start with, we're going to go to Mitch first in Berkeley. Mitch, what's going on?
Hey, how are you guys?
Doing good.
It's a privilege to be on the phone with you, Bobby Heenan, and I just wanted to say that I miss good managers in wrestling, and you were the best. And I'm just wondering if you have anything to say about why there isn't a spot for managers and why managers aren't in a vocal role anymore in wrestling.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't know. I guess it's because who's writing it, and they don't feel a need for it. It's not a job you apply for, and there's a waiting list, or there's always an opening. It's a creative job. It's acting. So they're not using managers right now. Why? I don't know. I have no idea why. I always thought a manager added something. A manager was a crouton on the salad. He was always a guy that could talk for somebody that couldn't talk, or could add some extra heat when the guy needed a manager. And most top guys never needed a manager. But when you put a top guy like Ray Stevens, which I consider myself a top guy, together with the likes of the Pat Patterson and Nick Bockwinkel, with the Andre the Giant, my goodness, everybody can talk, everybody can work. That's a phenomenal recipe to have right there. But why they don't have a manager anymore, I don't know. I don't think. See, when I was a manager, that's what I did for a living. And I had to feed my family and do things with that. And from different territories every night of the week. Nowadays, a manager is only a guy that works independent, and that's on weekends, and they don't make a whole lot of bread. And I don't think there's a whole lot of desire to go any further because they're not being used. And I really don't know why. Maybe no one's come up with the right gimmick to approach WWE with. I'd say who'd be the best manager in the business.
Do you think that as a formula, though, that it changed? Like when they started doing, I mean, and Dave, you could probably pinpoint the point in time better when wrestling started doing this formula with the Monday night stuff of two guys come out, they're going to do a match, then a promoter comes out, and they do this long diatribe, which is really, considerably different than how angles were booked in the 80s. Do you think when they started that new formula that managers started getting phased out at that point?
I think managers started getting phased out because it was economical. They could pay if you're going to have a budget and you got so much to allow for managers. This is the 1990s, the year 2000. Let's have managers with breasts and have no clothes on. That might work. So I think they went in that direction. Now, would you rather see Torrie Wilson wearing dental floss or Freddie Blassie?
However, Torrie Wilson in a main event role at ringside isn't going to help sell that many tickets other than as an attraction, whereas Freddie Blassie with someone who can't talk can help them out a lot. And one of the things that always frustrates me when it comes to the manager situation is when there's a guy, and Benoit will be the name that I'll say just because it's the name that always comes up, where they'll go like Chris Benoit, fantastic wrestler, but he's not a main event talker. And I was always thinking, well, why don't you put a main event talker with him? Because, my God, in the territorial days, there were guys from, Killer Khan and the Great Kabuki and all them whose gimmick was they didn't talk, and they had, whether it was Gary Hart or Bobby Heenan or whatever, they talked for him, and they were effective headliners.
If you had Paulie for Benoit.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
You could take a manager and put him with. I think one of my favorite managers of all time is Jimmy Cornette.
Yeah.
I love Cornette. I love his style. I love the tennis racket, the polyester, the glasses, money. He's a good guy. And he used to be an airplane pilot. Did you know that?
No.
The guy won't go up one step in an apartment or a ladder. He's scared of heights. He will not fly. He hates it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just teasing you. But no, I think Cornette is great.
Yeah, it was his biggest goal of this year was doing that show with you. I mean, it was like he's just hoping that somehow it comes up again sometime in his career because, when he was a kid, manager, Bobby Heenan was the manager, and then he came later, and
my dad.
Well,
that's an honor. Thank you very much.
Yeah. What do you say? Like, what's your thoughts as far as like the Hall of Fame thing coming up this weekend? Going in there with Jesse Ventura and Billy Graham and Tito Santana and some of the other guys.
I think it's wonderful. I think some guys in people have called us with the Hall of Fame. What does it mean to you? Does it mean anything to you? I said, well, sure it does. I said, you call a football player and ask him what Cooperstown means to them. Nothing. You call a baseball player and ask him what Canton means. Nothing. To me, because the fans are involved, and I'm going in after all these years with a bunch of my idol in the business was Buddy Rogers, and then my next idol was Ray Stevens, and then Pat Patterson, and Pat Patterson is probably the best worker the business has ever put out.
Really? You say that?
Oh, I'll tell you why. Because Stevens he saw first.
Hello?
Everything with Stevens. Stevens learned everything from Rogers. But Patterson came along, and Patterson, he could throw almost a better punch. And Patterson was just in that ring. He was. No one was better than Ray, but Pat could have been. Pat may have been. It's a borderline thing there. But I think if you just watch him all the time, day in and day out, I don't know. Pat had something special. You got to really think about it.
Yeah, we're going to go to break right now. Mitch, anything else really quick?
I just wanted to ask you, why did they cancel the ladder three-way match? Was it for safety, or what was the reason?
I think they just wanted to end WrestleMania with a cleaner finish than somebody grabbing a belt from a ladder.
Is it going to be Benoit making the pinfall?
I hope so.
Me too.
I tell you what, like no matter what people are saying now, until it happens, it doesn't happen. And you know what I mean? And in this match, more than almost any of them.
Absolutely. Hey, I had emailed you a question about that, and you answered it right away. I really appreciate that. And Bobby, it's a total honor to talk to you. Congratulations on the Hall of Fame.
Well, thank you very much. And I'll tell you something. With a 5-hour production, and this is number 20. I remember after number 1, I had a can of beer, and I said, Vince, here's to WrestleMania 2. He said, what do you mean to? Here's to WrestleMania 200.
Yeah.
So I know in his mind right now, there are kids that aren't even born yet, and they're figuring into the program down the road. So if he's got 5 hours at the Garden for WrestleMania 20, it's going to be something like you'll never see again in your life, probably.
Okay, Bob, we're going to be back with more with Bobby Heenan, taking your phone calls. His book, of course, Chair Shots and Other Obstacles. It should be at bookstores. Bobby's going to be going on tour, promoting the book. In fact, he'll be in some places in the Northeast this weekend in conjunction with WrestleMania. We'll talk about that as well. Back to Bobby Heenan right after this. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter. We're, of course, here with Bobby Heenan, whose book, Chair Shots and Other Obstacles, Winning Life's Wrestling Matches, has just come out, and he's going to be doing a lot of media work. Anything like a major as far as places that you're going in the next couple of weeks?
Well, I have a publicist now, and she's working on some things. I may be doing a cold pizza, and she's got some other things in the works lined up. So this will be an interesting month for me. It's going to be more fun. It'll be more fun after WrestleMania.
One of the things that I've always wondered, and I presume that things have come to you because you were so visible in the 80s and the 90s. But what did you ever? I always envisioned you as being on a comedy television show. Almost. And I guess primetime wrestling kind of was in a sense, but. Did I know Mick Foley's tried, and I know that's a lot easier said than done, but did that ever come up as far as something serious, where somebody would go we want to do some show and have you as the neighbor or something like that?
Well, it was hard to do at that time because I was under contract with the WWF, so whoever called me had to go through them. So you never know what offers you got or how many messages were lost. You never know. And to do something like that, you have to have an agent. Well, to have an agent to get you to work like that, it wouldn't work because I'd be under contract with WWF. So they have first call. So if I'm working 300 days for WWF, on my day off, I can't go out there and read for parts and maybe get a show that'll take me 6 months to do. So you see, it's all tied up like that. To be an actor, you have to be an actor. You have to quit what you're doing. You quit your family, quit everything. And 24 hours a day, you got to study and read lines and know how to do things. I don't just have to know my lines. I have to know 4 people in that set or in that area, in that scene, to know what to talk about, when to come in, when not to come in. It's something they have to do. We have to study, and it's really a hard profession. Anybody thinks they can just act and fall down and pretend like they're getting hurt, like they can pretend they're wrestling, but can you make money at it? Can you have a career doing it? That's the main thing. And I don't have the talent or the intelligence to remember that much script and do all that. And at that time, I couldn't get away from doing that. I wanted always to do a talk show on radio, but I have to have a partner.
Yes, and so do I.
Pardon?
So do I.
Well, yeah, that's why we all have to, but they're called puppets. No, but I mean, but I have to have something to bounce off of, and their thoughts, then things click into my mind. But for me to be like Rush Limbaugh and sit there for 3 to 4 hours a day and just hammer the same issue all the time, I can't do that. I'm not that bright.
Let's go to Patrick in Kingston, Ontario. Patrick, what's going on?
Not too bad, you guys. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
It's a real honor, again, to talk with Bobby the Brain Heenan. He's been one of the influences in what I like professional wrestling, is the way he just made the crowd go wild and how badly he made everyone boo him, That was one of the greatest things I liked about him, He was one of the greatest heel managers of all time.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And it really came easy. It wasn't that I hated the fans. It was that I'm a ham, and when they would boo, I just somehow had a gift that I could turn it up, and I could make them get louder and louder and louder. And I think I learned that from Ray Stevens, because I remember we were in Rockford, Illinois one night, and we were working with Ray Stevens and I were working with Peter Maivia, and I forget who else it was. And he got Peter Maivia down, and he started choking Peter. And Rockford was a pretty noisy place. And they were quiet this night, and Ray said, watch this, I'm going to shift gears. And Ray started choking him more and more, and his hair started flying more and more, and they were coming on the stands. They were yelling and screaming. And I just learned from him. We just shift gears.
Wow. I've got a thing to ask you. How does it feel to beat cancer? I've heard so many good stories about people beating cancer, but this one is just a miracle. I'm glad that you beat cancer, and congratulations on beating cancer.
Well, thank you. It's who knows if you really beat it. It's just you just hope everything's all right. But I appreciate your concern, and thank you very much, sir. Very nice of you.
No problem. And I've got a question. Are you, other than the Hall of Fame for this Sunday for WrestleMania, are you going to be doing commentary for any of the WWE matches that night?
As of yet, I don't know. I know they're going to introduce us there. Whatever they'd like me to do, I'd be glad to do. They bestowed a nice honor on me that I never thought I'd have when I was laying on my stomach, eating a bologna sandwich in 1959, watching the Vince McMahon Sr.'s wrestling show out of Bridgeport, Connecticut, watching Buddy Rogers wrestle. And that's what hooked me. Did I ever think that, I thought that in 1968 or 9 that I would wrestle Buddy Rogers on a TV in Walled Lake, Michigan for the Sheik. Let alone that I think I'd get to know Buddy Rogers. He'd come by prime time sometimes, and when we do it in Maryland. And let alone I ever thought I'd be in the Hall of Fame with this man. So this is something for me. This is really an honor for me.
And as they say, all dreams come true, and I got to say that's very true, eh?
Hey.
Well, if all dreams come true, that means Tony Schiavone is going to have jackets in the morning.
Now you worked with Tony just recently.
I'm just teasing about that. You're right. I worked with him I think for a swing.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, guys, you have a good night, and hopefully we'll get to see you this Sunday at WrestleMania. Have a good night, guys.
Okay, you're very welcome. Well, we'll definitely be seeing Bobby on WrestleMania, and I'm sure we'll be watching those clips on Confidential the next week as well, and probably every other show. Hopefully, when they do the Hall of Fame stuff, they'll play it on every show, and I'm sure they will. They did video clips on Thursday night and again last night of you and Jesse Ventura, Billy Graham, Tito Santana, and everybody else, including Pete Rose. Now. Well, were you a fan of Pete Rose, baseball fan or anything like that? Or
oh, yeah. Who wouldn't be a guy that hits that many hits?
Yeah.
And he's arrogant.
Yeah, and you even kind of made fun of him in like the first page of your book. I have a confession to make. I bet on wrestling.
Hey, I didn't do it from no guessing him. I did it from the ring.
Well, you may have had some inside information. And so hey, did you ever have like I guess probably maybe AWA days or when you were working a territory, because once but do you ever have a favorite city where it was just like, man, I can't wait, either like because the crowd hated you or just because whatever? Did you have like even in when you were touring with WWF, was there like a place where, I don't know if it was Indy or Chicago or something that just brought up the fondest memories for you?
Well, I'll tell you something funny. The reason I like cities was the ones that were convenient. I like Baltimore because you could drive your car in the building, and you could get out of your car and walk into the dressing room. You didn't have to go through the crowd or nothing. The Garden is very hard to get in and out of, but there's a magic to being in Madison Square Garden. The first time I was in Boston Garden, seeing those banners hanging. But you can't park there. You have to park out back, and it's very hard to get to your car. The fans are very, very happy there. And Denver had a tremendous presence, and the building would shake. The way the people would scream and yell there, it was a tremendous crowd there. But you had to walk around the corner to the hotel, and everybody there in the wintertime had a snowball, so you can figure out what's happening. So that's why I pick different places and different buildings for convenience and that. But probably Milwaukee. Milwaukee always had great fans, and so did Chicago. Chicago, Milwaukee, and Minneapolis. Minneapolis, too. I mean, there's not that many bad places, really.
I got a question. In 1984, I guess it was, late 84, when you made the switch from Vern to WWF, and it was the middle of a wrestling war, and, did you have any feeling like, like the money was just so good you had to go, and New York you just had to go just because you'd never been there? Or did you have this feeling that, like, what was going to happen in wrestling and where the business was going, and New York was the place to be? And what were your thoughts as far as, leaving the so-called old guard, I guess, in the place that you'd been for on and off for most of your career?
Well, I talked to Vince Sr. every 6 months for maybe 10, 15 years. But he would never use me because he had Freddie, he had Lou, and he had the Grand Wiz, Ernie. And he just didn't have enough budget there for me. So I said, I'll just keep checking back with you. So then after Ernie died, I waited a grace period, and I called, and I remember saying to him, I said, I don't mean to sound like you can hear the wings of my hitting the side of the building like I'm a buzzard flying over the garden, but I wanted there to be an opening. And this was right at the time when Vince was going to take over. And he said, Bobby, something's going on now that I can't discuss with you. He says, but if I was to do business with you now, there'd be a problem. He says, but you'll hear about it, and just keep in touch. I'm going to Japan. So I'm in Japan, Harley Race and I are in Japan, and Harley tells me in the morning that Senior had died of cancer. So that's the closest I ever came to working there.
Mm-hmm. We're going to go to Alan in Deerfield Beach. Alan, what's going on?
Dave, how you doing?
Doing good.
Bobby, it's a pleasure. I've watched you a lot of years. I just got the book. I can't stop laughing. I wanted to ask you about your relationship with Hulk Hogan. I know you were close, but have you ever argued? Because even friends argue.
Well, it's a different close. We're not close. Some guys are close and some guys aren't. Hogan and I are years apart in age. Not that far.
Not as many as you think.
But I mean, it's styles. But I mean, I was married before him and had a family, and he just went a different channel than I did. He lives in a different part of town than I do. He has different friends than I do. And when guys are off, they never hang with each other, see each other. In the dressing room, we always talked and laughed. On the planes and the airports, we kayfabed it. But no, he was always a gentleman to me. I've never had an argument with really anybody in the dressing room. I had a fight one time in Detroit in the dressing room. That's the only time I ever had a problem in my life. But, no, Hogan and I have never had a problem. I remember when he had his own dressing room, and had his name on the door and everything. He'd open the door and had all the boys dress with him. I remember sometimes he wouldn't even use that room. He would dress with the guys. No, he was never no problem to me.
Okay, Bob, we got to go hit to a break. We just got a couple minutes with Bobby. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with Bobby Heenan, whose book, Chair Shots and Other Obstacles, Winning Life's Wrestling Matches, has just come out. In fact, it's the #1 wrestling book this week on the Amazon.com rankings, which is good for its first week out. And we just got a couple of minutes left with Bobby. I want to get one call in. Tom in Atlanta. Tom, what's happening?
Hello, good evening. Bobby, I was wondering, what was the most intense locker room brawl you ever witnessed?
Never saw one.
Really?
Never saw one.
Were you there when Spivey and Adonis, or you weren't there that night?
No, I wasn't there that night. I was in Detroit one night. It's funny. They both happened. I was in Detroit in the 70s, and there was some jobber there that was using our name, our company's name, to get himself rooms and something, and then he wouldn't pay the bill. So when the real wrestlers checked in, the manager raised the rates and wouldn't let us stay there anymore. So I cut the guy in the dressing room. I told him, I said, hey, you little so-and-so, don't you ever use our name for something so you can benefit by it, and then you don't pay for it. We have enough trouble getting respect, and then you try to destroy it. I said, you're nothing but a blank, blank, blank. And he took a step towards me, I hit him, and he went down, and I kicked him in the head. And the commissioners and Baron von Raschke and Mulligan Lanza were sitting there on the bench, holding their sides. They were laughing so hard. Because what I did was I hit the guy. When he charged me, I hip blocked him. Well, you don't hip block a guy in a fight. It's like ass bumping a guy. You don't hip punch with a guy. So I hip blocked him. He went down and kicked him in the head. He got up, and it was over after that. He never came back around. He was a wimp. And then one night I was in Detroit, too, and I saw Billy Jack and Mike Strapp get into it.
Oh, I've heard of that one.
And they stood there and they punched each other, and finally everybody came around and it was over. And it was okay, nothing, but I've never seen guys even argue in the dressing room that much. I saw Big Slater in Houston when I slapped around some guy. But other than that, nah. You know how many dressing rooms I've been in since 1961? Boy.
Thousands.
I've seen more Buck than Clinton.
Bobby, have a good night. Take care.
Okay, my friend.
Bobby, thanks very much for coming on, and I hope you have a really good month going all over the place promoting the book and getting on some good TV. And good luck at WrestleMania, and you don't need it because I know you'll do well. And it's always a pleasure to have you on, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
David, thank you very much. And I know my friend Steve Anderson always tells Harry and Mike Tenay, and I just wish that our friend Zane Breslau could be here to know that I was going in the Hall of Fame and had a second book coming out of him. And I thank all you guys.
Yeah, and thanks very much for mentioning his name, because Zane was a really good guy. And
he was.
Yeah. And he
thought owed me $50.
Okay. We'll see everybody in a couple weeks.